I'm Tenitra Batiste, and is this the week can't get right, gets right?
I'm Maria Martin, and it feels like we are just limping towards the end of the season.
I'm Freeman, and Falcons are playing on Sunday. I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
I'm Jarvis Davis, and I'm starting to feel like Marshawn Lynch a little bit. Just here so I won't get fined.
ATL! ATL!
Rise up, A-Town. It's the Falcons Squad. Everything Atlanta Falcons every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the ATL. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Straight from the ATL, the Falcons Squad Show starts now.
Welcome to the Falcons Squad Show, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Locked On Falcons host Aaron Freeman, Locked On analyst Jarvis Davis, and 11 Alive anchor Maria Martin. The Squad Show is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. And our episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So, can one of the signal callers for the Falcons convince us he's got it? We'll discuss. And how do you avoid another world beater type performance against this Falcons defense? We will unpack that. And what's really going on with the thoughts of whether or not the chief signal caller will or won't be here? We will download on that. But first, what's the issue? And can it be fixed in the next 5 weeks? So the Falcons have lost 5 games this season that were decided by a score or less. What, for you, Jarvis, has been the biggest issue for this team in these close losses where they're showing us they don't have the ability to close out?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of the thing about this particular team is they've been, if you look at it from an overall standpoint, when they're in games in the fourth quarter, they've been playing pretty solid, right? But it just seems like in certain moments when you need someone to step up and make a play, they just haven't been able to. Everybody just disappears, just whether it be David Onyemata, who's been playing okay against the run, he gets double teamed and ran up out of the way, and then Breece Hall got a one-on-one with the safety, and sometimes he'll make the tackle, sometimes he might not. So it's just too many instances where, like, another example, Mike Hughes standing at the first down marker, and the ball has been snapped, and he's walking. He's literally walking away from the line of scrimmage, right? And D. Offer is the guy playing in the slot, and he's breaking on the ball before Mike Hughes does. And all Mike Hughes is, he gets there in time enough to just tap the man on the shoulder to down him, but he's right at the first down marker. So it was like, okay, when are you going to get involved in this play? When are you going to start making a move? So it's just certain instances where it just seems like guys are just lax or guys are just out there. And it just seems like they just don't have any clue what to do. So, yeah, I think overall there are times where this team looks like they're humming. Like, for example, that sack by James Pierce Jr., that was supposed to be much more of a big of a deal than it was, because when you think about being in the fourth quarter and that type and getting home like that, that means he was setting them up. He set that tackle up because, hey, he's coming, speed to power, off the edge, speed to power. Then next thing you know, speed, and then boom, he's swimming back inside because that tackle has been setting up for that speed rush. So I think it's hard to celebrate those small wins like that, because Pierce has been working on this game and he's been, becoming a better rusher. But, in the end, the end result is pretty much is going to be a loss. And it's just truly unfortunate.
Yeah, unfortunate as well. And when I think about that, Jarvis, it's not just the biggest issue for this team in those losses where you see one move that could have made all the difference from the players, but you feel like that with the coaches as well. But we'll talk about the implications of how the coaches missed that one important move particularly in these rash of losses. So for you, Maria, when you kind of look at where the Falcons have been, and not just the string of losses in a row, right, but also even some of those early losses, you could argue about that had just the one score or less that the game was decided by. What's that maybe biggest issue or consistent issue for you that you feel you keep seeing with this team in these close losses?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one of the most frustrating things is there's not a singular thing that you can point to and say, here's the fix. And I think that that's what everyone is probably the most frustrated about. It's not like you're looking at special teams and saying you're absolutely the issue, which we know special teams has been a problem. It's not like you're looking at certain aspects of the defense and saying you're the issue. Every single game, it seems like there's something different. Obviously, special teams coming off this last game was abysmal. Sometimes you can point to a final play by the defense not getting it done. Sometimes you can point to the offense not doing enough in order to win the football game. I mean, they're 1-6 in games where they've been favored this year. That is just not good. And we've talked about it in the past where good teams find a way to win and bad teams find a way to lose. And that's consistently what you've seen when you look at the schedule, and there are all these games that you're talking about, Tenitra, when they are supposed to win a game and they're losing by one margin. You flip that, they're winning all those games. We're having a completely different conversation. That hasn't been the case, obviously, for the Falcons. I think that makes it even worse, knowing that you are that much closer to a margin that is so thin. Obviously, throw out a couple of those games. Panthers, the first time around, comes to mind for sure. But for the most part, they've been in it, if not having the capability to win. And when they are not getting over the hump and getting that final play or that final score, or special teams was not a final moment, it was top to bottom in the last game. So that would be an issue I would point to for sure in that one. But when you're looking at that, you're saying there is a deeper issue here. It's not just the players making one more play. I think that there are issues throughout this entire team. It's why we're talking about them potentially missing a playoff spot for almost certainly for the 8th straight year. There is not a singular fix for this team. And that's why we're sitting here thinking we're limping towards the end of the season and there's not anything fun to talk about anymore.
Yeah, it really, and you definitely make a valid point, Maria, because you could probably point at any number of areas with this team and make the argument about what that biggest issue might be, because there are just that many issues to point out. But for you, Aaron, kind of what do you see as maybe, I'll say, the most glaring, or maybe the one that gets under your skin the most, like, wow, are we still having this conversation about this consistent issue that I've seen during the losses? And look at the look on Aaron's face. Like, where the hell do I know what to do now?
That's a meaning of life look. Like,
yeah.
It
took me to my dark place, because I was like, oh, now you framed it a different way, where it's like, oh, this is the one thing that's bothering me. It's not one thing. So I had to go through a whole list of things that are bothering me. But probably if I'm just picking one thing that immediately came to mind in terms of the breakdowns this past Sunday against the Jets, it was, Tyrod Taylor just kind of deciding oh, okay, I'm just going to run for first down and no one's going to stop me. And I know on the sort of final drive, that first time when he ran for a 14-yard gain, it was kind of Jalen Walker and Leonard Floyd who kind of lost their contain on that. And, that's been something that Jarvis has talked about, like rush discipline, especially. And with all the upgrades and upgraded athleticism that the Falcons have added to their front seven with much more speed and athleticism, last year when they couldn't stop a mobile quarterback, it was like, oh, okay, because they don't have anybody good enough to spy those guys. And this year they have 8 guys that are good enough to spy those guys, and they still can't stop a mobile quarterback. And so that's the one thing that really stands out. But piggybacking on Maria's point, it's a different thing every week, right? You go back to this Jets game, you had 2 opportunities late in the game to go down the field and score. The first time the Falcons got the ball, the offensive line couldn't hold up in protection. And basically you had a 3-and-out. And then the second time you get an opportunity, offensive line is blocking, you get the protection that you need, and then the receivers won't catch the football. And so sort of piggybacking on that point that Maria made, it's like a different thing every single week. And so there's not a singular fix that gives you the hope, oh, if we can just figure out this one thing, this team will be back. It's every week there's a different thing. Every other drive, it's a different thing, and it's just a collection of catastrophes, I guess you could say, that is leading to why this team is not able to sort of finish these games, whether it's on the offensive side of the ball, whether it's on the defensive side of the ball. And so it just feels like there's really no hope that there's going to be one sort of thing that sort of corrects that issue moving forward. And so it feels like we're going to get more of these types of performances from the Falcons in these late game situations that have played them all year long.
Yeah. And Jarvis, you laid out, Maria laid out, Aaron laid out a multiplicity of issues that have caused the Falcons to be in the boat they find themselves in these last 5 weeks of the season. But can any of these issues be fixed this season, like in season? Not so much to Maria's point that you can get to the postseason because that's a wrap, but fixing it so that you can at least salvage the rest of this season. Is there any issue that you see that can be fixed?
I would assume that special teams, you can fix that, right? I would believe, when you think about utilizing all of your personnel, like, hey man, if we really want to fix this thing, if we really feel like this is a glaring issue, we'll tap into some guys that normally wouldn't play special teams. We'll tap into Jalen Walker. I know people are probably gonna look at me and cringe when I say that, but that can't be the reason why we lose football games. Because when you talk about just putting better players in positions to make plays, hey, special teams is part of this thing too. Like, you lost the game because, right? The opener against Tampa, last week, like, you lost games because of that unit. So it will behoove you to start using better players on that particular unit. So I think that just from the one glaring issue that has been consistent throughout this season is that you obviously want to give guys opportunities, or guys will earn opportunity to be on the active roster, so you use them on special teams. But at the end of the day, it's about who's out there making plays and who's doing what they're supposed to do. Guys need to sit down if they can't get the job done. And I think that you can start there.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Jarvis, because I've heard a lot of people kind of say some of the challenges, and I think we saw it with Younghoe Koo, like some of the challenges may be that loyalty that Raheem Morris has to certain players and maybe wanting to just give them a shot until they could reset themselves. But other than Kadero Hodge being a quote unquote healthy scratch, we really haven't seen a lot of guys just be pulled and said, hey, you're not getting the job done. Sorry, I got to move on. So yeah, that could be a very viable thing. Like, just step up, make the tough decision and say, hey, you can't go, or hey, you're going to get limited snaps because of what I've seen in the last week or in the last couple of weeks. What about you, Maria? Is there any issue that you see that can be fixed to somewhat salvage the rest of this season?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with Jarvis here. I think special teams would be the one area that I would point to, because I feel like the issues on offense and defense are so glaring that's just not going to fix itself between now and the end of the year. But special teams would certainly be one of those things, which too, keep in mind, there's been some uncharacteristic stuff on special teams, especially, in the performance against the Jets. Let's just go back to that, because that was, to steal Raheem's words, awful. And it was. Jamal Agnew makes a very uncharacteristic mistake, which Jamal Agnew doesn't normally do that. And then you have a miss from 50 and then make one from 52. I mean, some of that stuff I feel like is just uncharacteristic. However, these issues have repeated themselves throughout the season. And that's where you look at it and you say, all right, this wasn't an outlier. Special teams has had quite a few issues throughout the season. So yeah, I tend to agree with Jarvis. I think it could be rotating a few guys in and out on special teams. A lot of the times, especially back it up all the way to the summer, you want guys that can participate in special teams in order to make a roster. So make the changes. There are guys that have experience in playing special teams that aren't playing or participating with that unit right now. You can do that. Is it going to save your football season? No, but it's going to potentially save you some games at the end of the day.
Yeah, because I thought it was interesting that Kadero Hodge was made a scratch versus, hey, let's just shift him back to his natural Pro Bowl, all pro type of space. But yeah, that could definitely be a viable issue that could be fixed, because, and also it's probably where you need to start, because that seems to be the most glaring of the three phases that have gone wrong most consistently this season. But Aaron, might you have another issue that you think can actually be fixed this season?
I don't know if this is going to fix the issue, but it will fix my enjoyment of watching the games, maybe at this point.
Fair.
I think it's time to turn the page on Mike Hughes. Like, it's been a problem. I don't think it's Mike Hughes's fault that like he's a limited cornerback, but like at this point, we've been watching like 6 weeks of NFL teams being like, AJ Terrell's on that side and Mike Hughes is on that side. So I'm just going to throw at Mike Hughes' side of the field. Yeah. And so it's just funny because I remember after the draft, people were like, oh, like Kobe Bryant's going to come from Mike Hughes' job. And I was like, guys, what are we doing here? And now we're here. And I'm like, Kobe Bryant, might as well throw him out there, throw him to the Wolves, see what he can do, getting 14 targets a game, see what you got in that player, bring up CJ Henderson at this point in time. I think, the Mike Hughes experience has run its course. And so let's see what you got at that other outside cornerback spot. I mean, they're all going to get picked on basically, because again, it's going to be the same conversation, but maybe, just maybe, somebody else is going to be able to make a play and break up a pass or something like that, make a play or something like that, that will, I don't know if it's going to save your season, but it'll at least maybe save my sanity on Sunday.
See if you can find some value in an undrafted player. I mean, make yourself look good, Terry. Make that phone call. Hey, I need 37 to be in there. I need him to get reps. I'm sorry looking at 21. I made a mistake. I'm not bringing his replacement in.
Right. Own it. Well, yeah, I like what Free said. How did you say it, Free? You maybe you can't salvage the season, but maybe they can do something to salvage your sanity. So I'm going to say, I'm literally going to go with that for Maria, Jarvis, and I, that we would just like on behalf of the Falcons faithful and those who support and report to the Falcons faithful. Yeah, we would like a moment of sanity this season, if at all possible. And hey, even if any one of those issues that you guys mentioned can be fixed, there is every possibility, as the Panthers showed us against the Rams last week, that, hey, a team could be a little off one week. And maybe if you get back on the get right train, maybe you can take advantage of it. But to do that, one single caller has to convince us that he's got it. We'll take that under further review. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action now. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, or right here in Georgia. And the new stats feature, that's a game changer. You can now pick more on points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. Anybody check out Jamal Murray's performance last night against with the Denver Nuggets in a win where, oh my God, he went off for 52 points, 11 to 12 from 3. Nice night. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves your lineup from a loss. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Thank you guys so much for making the Falcon Squad Show your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And Maria, thank you for just being here. Just being here is something to be applauded for this entire squad show. That said, Zach Robinson has a big task on his hands this week against the Seattle Seahawks. They are not just one of the top teams in the NFC, if not the NFL, but a stellar record on the road, 5-1 this season, if I'm not mistaken. So tall task for this Falcon squad, especially a group in the Seahawks that can actually score. But that said, Maria, what does Zach Robinson have to do for you in order to show that he's a competent play caller against Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, the Seattle defense is terrifying. And when you watch them on tape, they've continued to get better. And even when Sam Darnold is not playing well, he's got a defense that backs him up and is able to keep them in ball games. So there are a lot of unfavorable situations for the Falcons in this, unless Zach Robinson can find a way to run the ball. run the ball, establish the run against a very good run defense. They're towards the top in all of the NFL in run defense. But when you do that, you can set up an opportunity to get some of those explosive play matchups and win them on your side. Plus, too, this is a defense, talking about Seattle, that just does not handle tight ends very well. If you can make Kyle Pitts be a favorable matchup for you in all of what we're talking about, establish a run, and then make sure Kyle Pitts gets his on Sunday, they could at least keep it close. I mean, I think this is going to be a very tough game for the Falcons to win. Mm-hmm. But if you have them going up and just completely emphasizing the pass rush, going to be a long day for Kirk Cousins and company on Sunday. So establish a run for sure, and then make sure you utilize Kyle Pitts, considering the Seahawks don't love a tight end.
Yeah, and I think that is actually a good point that you make, Maria, because, that defense is playing lights out. But again, where might that weakness be, and where might you be able to take advantage of it? And yes, if they can get one Kyle Pitts Sr. to really give them a quality game like we saw a couple times this year, and I'm looking at the game most recently against the Jets, where he had his season high as far as yards go, 82 yards, but then also looking at that game, the first game of the year against the Bucks, the game against the 49ers, where he had 7 catches and it's 8, 10, 8 targets respectively. So maybe, just maybe, that'll be an opportunity for the Falcons to take advantage of. Maybe Zach Robinson showing like, hey, I can look at a mismatch and I can tell how to actually put the Falcons, Kyle Pitts, in a favorable position to succeed. Now, Maria made a good point as well. That doesn't mean necessarily that we're saying, Zach Robinson, what can you do as a signal caller, as a play caller, to put the Falcons in position to win? But what it does mean is, hey, what can you do in order to look competent, in order to make this team look like they can compete?
Yeah, and if you can compete for 4 quarters, then you are in a position to win, as you put it there. So we'll see if they can do that. But I think, sort of piggybacking on that point, like, Kyle Pitts has an opportunity to have a big game, and unlike previous years when we say that, it's like, oh, well, maybe he'll actually have a big game this year, as opposed to past years where it was like, oh, well, this team can't defend the tight ends, but it ain't going to matter because, either because they ain't going to call the plays or Kyle Pitts is not going to make the plays for them to take advantage of that. But to me, the issue is, like, even if you can get Bijan Robinson going, even if you can get Kyle Pitts going, that's still only 2 players. And unless you're getting Bijan going for like 200 plus yards from scrimmage and Kyle Pitts for like 150 yards receiving or something like that, I don't know if that's going to be enough to carry your offense. And so you're going to need a third guy. And whether that's Tyler Algier, whether that's Darnell Mooney, I think you got to get a third guy. That's, I think, been a thing that's held back this Falcons offense, is that they can usually get 2 guys going, Bijan typically and Drake London, obviously, with Drake London not likely to play in this game. You're hoping Kyle Pitts maybe can step up in that role. And Darnell Mooney, like, again, we've been saying it all year long. It's like, you're going to show up. You did a good job against the Saints. Can you do something against the Seahawks? Because if we're relying on David Sills to have to step up and carry the offense, good luck with that, man. I'm just saying, like, good luck with that. So, I'm looking, whether it's Tyler Algier, popping off like, 70 yards and 2 touchdowns or something. You got to get a third guy going. And if Zach Robinson can make this offense a 3-headed monster, they have a shot of challenging, one of the best, if not the best defense in the NFL currently in the Seattle Seahawks. But if it's just a 2-man show, I don't think that's going to be good enough. I think the Seahawks will be like, okay, yeah, Bijan's going to do his thing, Kyle Pitts is going to do his thing, and that's going to result in like 20 points, and we'll score 24, and we'll walk out of here with a 24-20 win, and that's good enough. But if you're going to really put this Seahawks team in an uncomfortable situation, you're going to have to score a lot more points than that, and I just don't think 2 guys are as good as the 2 guys that the Falcons have are good enough to do that on their own. So we'll have to see if a third guy can step up.
Hey, maybe that third guy, going back to what Maria was saying, maybe the third guy is Charlie Warner. I mean, 3 for 3 in that Saints game. And we know that he also had some critical blocks in that same game. So I don't know. It might be one of those, and I know we'll talk a little bit about X factors later, but it could be one of those names where it's truly an X factor. Like you've got to get it out of somebody that maybe the Seahawks aren't preparing for, they're not scheming for or game planning for. But for you, Jarvis, like where can Zach Robinson show that competency as a play caller, especially against a defense like the one that the Seattle Seahawks will bring into the Bend Sunday?
I think he's going to need some accessories in order for him to look good. You know how you go out at night, T. You got your favorite, you know what I'm saying, bracelet, necklace and all that stuff that kind of goes with everything, and it make that outfit pop. You know what I'm saying?
She doesn't need the accessories to look good.
Thank you, Maria.
Come on.
Back at you, Maria.
Like she actually liked it. Why did you have to say something?
I mean, I'm just trying to stick up for D here.
Y'all always make me out to be
Thank you,
bad guy. We're going to have a talk about this. Fourth segment, we ain't talking no Falcons. We're going to talk about my well-being, my mental health.
Your mental health. You're protecting your peace.
Sorry.
Operational peace on the Falcon Squad show.
Sorry.
Right now. I need to talk to somebody. This is ridiculous. But no, seriously. They're going to need. How do you segue out of that? The three-headed monster of Ryan Newsel, Chris Lindstrom, and Matt Bergeron. That is going to be so key because guess what? They got Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams. Leonard Williams has been giving the Falcons problems for quite some time whenever they face off against him. He just seems to have one of those games every time they plays against the Falcons. So I think that centerpiece of this offensive line is gonna have to have one of those type games because those Byron Murphy and Williams are sitting right there at the top of their team and leading in sacks. Both of them got 7 sacks. They're sitting right there waiting. So if they are able to control those two, I feel like Zach Robinson is going to look like a hero. But if they aren't, and they have one of those games, we're going to be seeing them like, dang, Zach Robinson don't know what the heck he doggone doing. So, yeah, I really feel like Zach can come up with a nice game plan, but if Matt, Chris, and Ryan don't have a good game, you can forget about it.
Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned that because that was going to be my honorable mention because you're not necessarily calling plays per se for the O-line, but there are certain ways that you can scheme to take advantage of whatever is the best skill set of each and every one of those guys across the line, which then trickles down hopefully to impact some of the other players that you guys mentioned that Zach can put in position to be successful. Now, one player, Marie, it seems, has been successful in terms of what Zach has schemed for him, or maybe what he has schemed for himself that's been co-signed by Zach is Kirk Cousins. I mean, other than that Dolphins game, and maybe it was because, hey, he had to knock the rust off and he was still kind of finding.
That's for sure. A lot of rust.
Rusty Dusty, yeah. So maybe he had to knock off the rust. But Kirk Cousins has been solid in relief for Michael Penix Jr. How would you, however, evaluate this offense with Kirko under center so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the offense at this point is putting them in a position to win. Something we certainly couldn't have said, over the last couple of games. But yes, Jarvis, once he knocked that rust off, he's been fine. I mean, I think playing to his strengths have been a big thing for Zach Robinson. And I know a lot of people are skeptical because once they see Kirk going under center and weaving in play action with that, they're like, where the heck is that with Michael Penix Jr.? And honestly, all that tells me is that Mike is completely uncomfortable with that. And that's not totally abnormal for a young quarterback. But it does give you pause and concern when you're just simply not running it at all with him as a quarterback. So, yeah, I mean, for Kirk, he looks fine. He's putting guys in a place where they could potentially win the game offensively. They're moving the ball down the field, and we're seeing guys like David Sills in the end zone, which is insane. But, David Sills and Kirk Cousins are very good friends. So I think that probably has something to do with it. Yeah. But yeah, and then you see Darnell Mooney take a step forward, which remember last year when Kirk was cooking, Darnell was his guy. And I think that kind of goes back to that piece of it. But this wide receiver core has just been quite frankly, a disaster through this later half of the season. So I think Kirk's doing what he can given what the offense is up against, but I think it's been fine. It's been acceptable. Let's call it that. And he's giving the Falcons an opportunity to win on Sundays right now.
At this point, Maria, acceptable, solid, above average, like that's where we are. It's just where we are.
Nothing great, nothing bad. You're just kind of
that
there,
might be the better thing, Maria. Like, the nothing bad part. If you can get more of the nothing bad part, like maybe that's what you are aiming high for. That's your aim high at this point with this team this season. What about for you, Free? What do you think about how Kirk has been able to handle himself under center the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think Maria described it. It's been solid, right? It's been middle of the road for as far as what we've seen, the best version of Kirk as well as the worst version of Kirk. And you're getting sort of in that middle of the road, which is competent play. And it's funny because like a year ago, if we were getting this out of Kirk Cousins, people would be up in arms being like, oh my God, we're paying $100 million, $80 million for like a middle of the road quarterback and all this stuff. This is terrible. This is or now it's like, oh, okay. Like, that's fine. Like, given all the other fires going on the team right now, it's like, okay, Kirk being middle of the road, being competent is one of the positives that we have going on right now for the Falcons. So that's where I would kind of evaluate Kirk at this point in time. It's like, fine, you want to get a little bit more out of that, but at the same time, it feels like most of that is on the supporting cast around Kirk needing to step up as opposed to Kirk needing to elevate the rest of this roster to get to his level.
Yeah. And what about for you, Jarvis? How's Kirk been under center so far the last couple of weeks with what he's been able to do with Zach Robinson's offense?
I mean, this is what we were expecting him to be, right? You know, as the best backup quarterback in the NFL, you know, giving you something solid, letting the offensive coordinator know who's a second-year guy, right? And saying, hey, man, here's what I'm comfortable with. Here's what I think we should do. And him and Zach taking it in, like, all right, cool, sounds good. And then they just rolling with it. And I think that the adjustment to what you have and what you don't have from a personnel standpoint, Drake London being out, okay, let's go 13 personnel. Let's go 12 personnel. Let's really just dig into this thing. Let's highlight Bijan Robinson. Let's get this tight end, this unicorn going when he wants to get going. And let's see if we can be close in the fourth quarter to try to have an opportunity to win the football game. And that's what's been happening. So I think when you look at it from that aspect of it, like you have to say that Kirk has done a solid job, right? Like he's done what he's supposed to do. That is give the team the opportunity to win the game. It's just that you're on a team that seems to shrink when things get tight. And they seem to not have any answers. So, you know, I'm not putting that on Kirk. I'm putting that on this coaching staff and also the players as well on the other side of the football. So when you think about it from that aspect, I really feel like he's done a solid job, and like they're going to have to do a little bit more than a solid job against this Seahawks team.
Yeah, indeed. Now, how do you avoid another world beater type performance against this Falcons defense? We'll unpack that next up. So, Aaron, the last time we saw Jeff Ulbricht's defense, it couldn't stop a Tyrod Taylor-led offense from kicking a last-second field goal. And, of course, the Jets went on to win that game. How can this defense avoid yet another performance like that coming back home to the Bends against the Seahawks team come Sunday?
Well, they got to get pressure. Sam Darnold seems to, you know, he's another one of these guys that tends to have really good games against the Atlanta Falcons. I remember when he was on a bad Panthers team and he was out here carving up the Falcons, running for like 15-yard gains and stuff, looking like prime Tyrod Taylor with his scrambling and whatnot. You go back to last year against the Vikings where the Falcons did get pressure in that game and he was just heaving up, 40-yard bombs to wide open wide receivers because certain defensive backs were all over the place. But we're not going to go there and be reminded of that. But like he just seems to have good games against the Atlanta Falcons. And so to avoid him having another notch in his belt against the Atlanta Falcons, they got to get pressure on the quarterback. And whether they're going to do so by rushing 4 whether they're going to do so by getting after him with the blitz. They got to find ways to get him on the ground. That is kind of the one thing that you can do to attack Sam, which is get pressure on him, and maybe he'll make some mistakes like we saw a couple of weeks ago when he threw 4 picks against the Rams. You saw a couple of turnovers against the Vikings this past week. Now, it didn't really matter because the Vikings couldn't do anything offensively. But for the most part, the Vikings were able to keep that Seahawks offense pretty much in check. Jackson Smith and Jigba had, I think, probably his least productive game of the season last week. And so you look at the Vikings defense with Brian Flores, you look at Jeff Ulbricht's defense, right? What are the two things that these two defenses have in common? They love blitzing the quarterback. And so we've seen the Falcons kind of back off on the blitz the last couple of weeks with trying to get their 4-man pass rush going. So want to see continued strides of that, but you still have a very effective blitz in your back pocket, and maybe the Falcons can tap into something and maybe slow down this Seahawks offense, because as good as AJ Terrell is, and normally I'd be like, oh yeah, you put him on Jackson Smith and Jigba and he'll handle that. Like, JSN's played so well this year that it's like that feels, they're not the same player, but the type of season he's having is a Julio Jones-like season. And I remember watching opposing teams for a decade in Atlanta. I'm like, you're actually going to play man coverage against Julio Jones? And so like, it's kind of a similar situation that's how well JSN is playing this year, where it's just like, yes, I do kind of want to play man coverage, but at the same time, that feels like shooting yourself in the foot and then, not going to the hospital and then just like, oh, just put a Band-Aid on it and it'll be fine. And it's like, bleed out in the kitchen or something like that. So yeah, we'll see if
get on him for saying stuff like that.
He didn't call out another person on the podcast. He said a random person getting shot in the foot. If he was like, Jarvis, it's when you get shot in the foot and then you put a Band-Aid on it, then I might have said something.
Then we're coming for him.
See, man.
Or if he had said, Jarvis, don't take
I'm about to lay on the couch. Don't know about that. I'll be back.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to Jarvis going into therapy in the 4th segment. So anyway, basically to say, I don't trust the secondary against JSN. And so that means I need the front to win the game for the Falcons defense. And that's going to be the main thing.
Yeah. It kind of feels like you're saying, Aaron, basically don't bring a knife to the gunfight if you really want to keep JSN in check, but also, Jarvis, if you want to keep Sam Darnold in check, because I don't want to trigger anybody, but I'll go ahead and trigger somebody. When you think about what this team did last season in week 13, particularly Sam Darnold, 22 of 28, 347 yards, 5 touchdowns, when he, of course, was under center for the Vikings. You don't want that again. That's what you're trying to avoid.
No, and I'll piggyback off of what Aaron said, but take it a step further. Like, I know people are getting tired of me saying this, but I'm going to continue to harp on it because it's been an issue throughout this season. Rush discipline, man. Like, if your edge guys are flying up the field and your D tackles aren't pushing that pocket, you're screwed. So you got to rush as a unit. I know people don't want to hear that crap because they just want to see people get the quarterback on the ground by one guy. But no, like it takes a unit to rush the quarterback effectively, especially when you're talking about rushing forward and not sending pressure. So I really feel like they're going to have to keep him in that pocket and get him to start seeing ghosts, because we know Sam Darnold can see ghosts. Once he starts seeing ghosts, he'll throw a 4-pick game in a heartbeat. Like as you had brought up earlier. So when you think about it from that aspect, my whole thing is heat him up, heat up the quarterback, send those 5, maybe 6-man pressures and play a little man coverage from here and there. Don't be consistent with it because, just I don't need another Ohio State wide receiver going off like that, right? On the team. I don't want to see the Sports Center highlights on that particular aspect of it, because it's gonna lead. It's gonna be the lead. I promise you. Every time the Falcons get toasted by something, they get the lead story for some strange reason. But yeah, I think right now this is gonna be a big one for those guys up front. And I really feel like if they're able to do that, if they're able to keep him maintained, don't allow him to use his legs, because he will. I feel like they'll be in good shape as far as being in it in the fourth quarter, because that's all you can ask. Just be in the fourth quarter, especially with a good team like this, and then you'll give yourself an opportunity to try to finish it out.
Yeah. Well, actually, you can ask for more, Jarvis, because we asked for more in the first segment. We actually asked you to do more than just being in the fourth quarter. We asked you to kind of close out, but I digress. Maria, for you, when you think about
all about limiting expectations, T, that's part of therapy.
Then you have no disappointments,
Right.
So no, right. But sometimes it just kind of seeps out there, Maria, like as much as I try to like level set, it just like, it's so frustrating, especially if you think back to even like the games that were so close this season, but even getting triggered by some of the games that kind of showed you the same thing last season. And it's like, what are you going to do? Particularly, we're talking about Jeff Ulbrich and what he'll be able to do, or what he can do to put this defense in position for, and I want to say this too. Like, I think one of the triggers, Maria, and just a quick sidebar, but one of the triggers is the fact that it does get exhausting when you look at maybe 2 of the last 3 games, I think it was, where players are having historic performances. And then you look at Sam Darnold and his performance last year against the Falcons, pretty much historic. And it's like, it does kind of get you a little bit triggered, because you're like, okay, what can be done so that there's not another world beater, historic type performance against Jeff's defense by the opponent's offense.
Yeah, Jarvis has said it, I think, multiple times in the past. For some reason, a lot of the times opposing teams, their get-right games are against the Falcons. And not that the Seahawks need a get-right game right now. I mean, they're potentially going to win the division. So they're playing very well. But if it's not a get-right game, it's something historic. And obviously that's exhausting for Falcons fans, and honestly for the players as well. I have turned into expect the worst and then maybe be pleasantly surprised by something. Me, like the overtly positive person, I'm at the point in the year where I'm like, you know what? If I just expect absolutely nothing, if I get a little bit, I'm like, all right, like this is great. So that's where I'm at right now. But back to your original question. I mean, I think affecting Sam Darnold obviously is the key thing here. He, before the last couple of weeks, was incredibly effective against the blitz, but over the last couple of weeks, he struggled quite a bit. Capitalize on that. He clearly is on a trend over the last, I think, 2 or 3 weeks where when he's getting blitzed like crazy, he tends to struggle. So if the Falcons can find a way to make him incredibly uncomfortable, that's going to be the key for them. Force them into these 3rd and long situations where he's trying to, innovate and be different. And that, I think, is going to really, really help the Falcons defense on Sunday. Sam Darnold having a historic game on Sunday yet again would just be, man, I don't even know. It would just be like, I can't give an analogy because the analogies on the show turn wild sometimes. But
go ahead, Maria, give us an analogy. So
do you want me to put you in it? If I put it like, that'll make us even if I put your name in it, right? It'll be like Jarvis. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. It would just be really bad. Obviously the Falcons don't need something like that to happen. But yeah, I think just making sure that you're making him incredibly uncomfortable will help a ton, especially when the Seahawks, their offense has really figured a lot out this year, and they're running the ball well. They've got, you're talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba too. They just have so many different variables on their offense. So if the Falcons can eliminate some of that on the earlier downs, I think they'll be in a good position.
Yeah. And maybe it goes back to what we were talking about on the offensive side of the ball, Aaron. Maybe it's that X factor, someone whom either we haven't talked about today, or maybe we haven't talked about in a couple of weeks, that we need to see that person step up and make a difference in the moments when it matters. So who for you might be the X factor on defense come Sunday?
Well, I'm going to sound like Jarvis Davis when I say this, but I'm going to say Jesse Bates. I need that man to be the most non-monogamous safety in the history of safeties and just cheat all day.
Okay, that analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, Free.
Yeah. I'm going there. Well, let's go. Let's go,
Free.
Let's go.
Yeah. Wow.
We're going to be a philanderer out here. Let's go, baby.
I need this man to go back to the ancient golden age of Islam where he has 47 wives, all right, and he's just throwing around gold, all types of stuff. Yes, this is crazy. I'm going there, Maria. We're going.
Wait, why do we always go there with Jesse? Like, Jesse is the one that gets picked on with this analogy. Like, I don't understand that at all.
Because what else are we gonna do? What else are we gonna do?
So,
I'm going there. I'm going there. I need this man to have 47 wives. I don't like, no deep. No, don't go deep. If they call you to play center field, Jesse, cheat. Be in the box. I need you to pick off some passes because Lord knows, like, this Falcons secondary and whatnot is not going to be able to get the job done, right? Xavier Watts got the deep stuff. He's been handling that. But I need Jesse to just cheat. Just jump every single Sam Darnold throw over the middle of the field, short, intermediate, just cheat. Like, whatever the coverage is, you do your own thing, Jesse. Pick off 4 passes. That's the X factor for the Falcons to win this game.
Jesse the infidel Bates. Let's go, baby.
Oh my gosh. No. We're not going.
It's too much. It's too much. It's too much.
He didn't ask for this.
I did not, Maria, and did not. So the two Jesse Bates III apologists on what might be the left screen or the right of your screen, like, we're like totally against all that has happened on the right side of that screen. Just a disclaimer, like, just all that's
you guys wrong. Know where we stand
on 3 levels. So Jarvis, you are not allowed to call Jesse Bates III an X factor.
Okay.
Or else. So other than 3 who all by his lonesome handled his business in his part of the secondary last season, but is a little bit on the struggle bus this year. Hey, sometimes it happens. Anyone besides Jesse Bates on defense, who's your X factor?
I am going with my main man, Jalen Walker. And close, second. Normally, I know he listens to the show because he's played well when I called him out, Brandon Dorans, but I ain't going to go with you this time. I need to go with 11. I need 11 to have one of those type of games, like a New England, Indianapolis Colts, New England Patriots type game. I need him to have one of those games where we're like, oh, yeah, Falcons made good on that draft pick right there. And because I need him to be a force in the run game because we know Seattle is going to try to run the rock. Anybody with the last name Kubiak is going to try to run the football, traditionally for the past 25, 30 years that we've seen a Kubiak named person in this league. So, yeah, I think that he's going to have to start with, helping stop the run. And then when they get into those third and long situations, I feel like Jalen Walker should be, having one of those type games in order to be considered an X factor.
Yeah. And for you, Maria, who's that X factor on defense that could make a difference in this game Sunday?
Aaron, I don't know what you're expecting me to say. I can just see you're like waiting for me to say something crazy. I actually do agree with Aaron. I'm going to pick someone else, Tenitra, I promise. But I do agree that it's going to take some elite safety play in order to beat the Seahawks. And then I see Jarvis's point as well. So kind of to piggyback off of Jarvis, I'll just put in the other rookie that we all have a lot of faith in. It's James Pierce Jr. because he can make quarterbacks uncomfortable. So I think that going back to what we were talking about and some of the keys for – Huh?
I said, especially when he's on block.
I had to throw that in there, Jarvis.
Okay. Well, anyways, I'm gonna stick.
Shade.
Hey, man.
Oh. Anyway, James Pierce Jr., come on down and ignore Jarvis Davis. Okay. Time to get after the quarterback, my friend. There you go, Tenitra.
Thank you, Maria, for eloquently getting us back on the rails after we had multiple attempts.
Aaron is literally praying in the middle of the podcast.
Oh man, this is great, guys. I'm enjoying this. This is the only joy I get out of covering the team anymore. Just
every Thursdays, baby.
What ridiculousness are we going to get into in the third and fourth segment? That's basically it.
Right. Therapy Thursdays and Mental Health Mondays from time to time. Like, be here for it because that's all we got for you. But reports are out there now about whether or not one guy in particular got on the sidelines. What does that look like? When does that happen? We'll discuss whether or not we think the report brings a surprise. and we'll use the term surprise loosely, but ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported on Raheem Morris' job status. And here's the quote. What I have been told is that blank respects Morris a lot, Arthur Blank, of course. So I don't expect a rash decision one way or the other. Any sort of in-season move would be a mild surprise from my view. While there's at least some smoke around this job, this feels far from being finalized. So is that report a surprise to you? Like, is that any new news?
No, not for me, because when you think about how Arthur Blank has operated, he stuck with Dan Quinn a little bit too long. Everybody knew that, hey, Arthur Smith was done after 3 years, and people had high expectations coming into the season, and then with injuries and a little bit of lack of leadership, or sucking as a leader, if I want to quote Raheem Morris, hey, Free, why you going there, man? Don't go there.
No,
don't
you dug yourself out of that
faces, like, if you guys don't pay attention, they're the best part of the show.
Right.
Like, you got to pay attention, because Jarvis will be saying something like not even off the wall, and he's like,
because I'm always wondering what is Jarvis about to say.
Worried or wondering? There's like
he's always setting up, and you never know which way Jarvis is going to go with the point he's about to make. So you're just like, what is he about to say?
Yeah, love it. Anyway,
that's why you gotta listen to your boy. You know what I'm saying? Because you never know. You never know. So, but I think that I wasn't surprised at all when Jeremy Fowler said, no rash decision will be made, because we've never seen Arthur make a rash decision. Every time he made a decision whether to hire or fire, like, oh, okay, it seemed like he put some thought behind that one. So, but as far as Raheem Morris's status, I feel like this thing I know people are probably going to say it's already off the rails, like they show from time to time, but it has to go off the rails, like off the train tracks, into a ditch, blow up, then get caught on fire, and there are no survivors. Like it's just got to be like lose the rest of the season. Basically, that's what would have to happen in my eyes in order for Arthur Blank to kind of make that decision and say, hey man, you got to go. And I don't foresee that happening, but you never know.
What about you, Maria? I mean, I don't see that it was anything shocking per se or a surprise, but what do you think about the report coming down from ESPN?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not surprising in any way. I think, I said it a couple of weeks ago on this show. It would make a lot of people upset when I said it. I would be surprised if Raheem Morris got fired, just given the nature of his relationship with Arthur.
Yeah.
They will point to, the quarterback that they drafted getting hurt in the middle of the year is something. And I don't see it happening, because, they'll try to explain it as, what does it fix? Because it kind of doesn't fix a whole lot when you're staring down a draft next year, whenever you don't have a first round draft pick anyway. Mm-hmm. And there hasn't been a big enough sample size for Raheem here to really play out his vision of what he wants for this team. I'm just kind of illustrating what I know Arthur Blank's line of thinking is. Mm-hmm. And he has strong allegiance to people that he cares very deeply for. And Raheem is one of those. And that has been documented for years now. It's the whole reason why Raheem is back here in Atlanta. So I think I understand the fans being upset and frustrated. They have every right to be that. When you miss the playoffs for an 8th consecutive year, it feels like there is no hope. I heard a national media member say last week that there is no other football team that has less hope than the Steelers. And I thought that was the craziest thing that I had ever heard, because...
Oh, not me, but okay.
Well, yes, you obviously specifically feel that way, but the Falcons don't really have a lot of hope in this moment right now.
They were my 1B.
Yeah, I think that national media member probably forgot the Falcons play football, if I'm, just going to guess.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think it's surprising. I also don't think that, going back to my original point, that Arthur Blank will make a decision at head coach this year. I know that's an unpopular thing and fans don't want to hear that. I just don't see how that happens, because when you are, if you let go of Raheem, what it signals is yet another rebuild. Arthur's not at the age where he's wanting to really do that. Just a guess. And so I think that going through that yet again, because this has been the consistent narrative for this team for quite a while, Falcons fans know that very well. Yeah, I just don't know. I think it does more harm than good. And I think that's kind of what Arthur is thinking at this point as well.
Yeah, and I think there have been maybe enough setbacks, and I haven't done like person to person, if you will, Aaron, or player to player, but I think there have been enough setbacks. Like when we think about this show as a whole, when we think about that second season with Arthur Smith and him getting the opportunity to come back for a third season, I don't know. I feel like Raheem Morris may have more things stacked in his favor that may actually give Arthur Blank a reason. I mean, you lost QB1 for crying out loud, just as you were trying to get QB1 set as QB1. So that's a starting point. You've had Drake London kind of in and out of the lineup. You've had multiple injuries on the defensive side of the ball, including the guy who seemed to be the most impactful player at the beginning of the season, Divine Diablo. So those alone could be reasons where Arthur Blank says, hey, with the team as it was currently constructed and as things kind of went sideways with injuries, maybe there's an opportunity there to give Raheem Morris another shot. And dare I say it, there may be a shift from a coordinator standpoint, at least one or two of the three coordinators, that if there's a change there, that might make give Raheem Morris an opportunity for a third season. That said, what was your thought on Fowler's report?
Well, I think my thoughts on Fowler's report piggybacks on what Jarvis and Maria said. Like, it's not a surprise. Like, we've been operating the whole time of like, that decision is going to be made at the end of the season in terms of people's job status. I think there was a point a couple of weeks ago where if they were going to move on from Raheem, it was maybe if they, laid an egg against the Panthers. Now, they did kind of lay an egg, but they were competitive until the very end of that game. So it gets you, and then they win the next week against the Saints. So it's it gets you back on board. And I think, T, you kind of outline, I hear all those things. To me, they sound like excuses more so than like reasons for me in terms of the Falcons downturn. But I think fair. Piggybacking on what Maria said, like based off of Arthur Blank's history, like I very much could easily see him having those same thought processes. The where I struggle with is just like, I don't see any reason to be particularly optimistic that you're going to get a significantly better result next year. Like the Falcons are 6-11, I believe, in their last 17 games.
Mm-hmm.
They were 8-9 last year. Like that's what they kind of feel like, a 6 to 8 win team. That's kind of what their wheelhouse is. And even if you do say, okay, well, we'll get a new offensive coordinator here, we'll get a new special teams coordinator here, and Michael Penix is going to come back at September, October, when, and so like it's hard for me, again, as an outsider looking in, to sort of look at that and say like, oh yes, there's real optimism for next season. And so to me, if like you already know the season's going to be lost anyway, then to me, bringing back Raheem and potentially Terry Fontenot to kind of delay the inevitable, that you're just, to me, it's very similar. Bringing back what Jarvis said about Dan Quinn, it just feels very similar to the 2019, 2020 situation with Dan Quinn, just a kind of mirror situation. And you hope Arthur Blank just kind of learns from that and just knows to rip off the Band-Aid. But I do think that is definitely a plausible outcome, that especially if the Falcons, with 3 games against playoff teams in these final 5 games, starting this weekend against Seattle and then next Thursday against the Bucs, and then right before the end of the season against the Rams, if they perform well in those games and are competitive in those games, I could easily see, ownership basically saying, well, we're close, and if we just get healthy and we get this thing back and we tweak this, we can be back in the thick of it, and then we'll get to September and be like, why aren't the Falcons in the thick of it? As usual. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So I feel like this report about the Falcons not making rash decisions, that feels spot on. That feels like where we have been this entire time, and they'll let it all play out. And I think if Arthur Blank is looking for reasons or excuses to retain Raheem Morris after the season, he'll be able to find those if he wants to, if he's looking for them. But certainly, I don't think the majority of Falcon fans are going to feel particularly thrilled about that if that's the result, how this all plays out.
Yeah, and listen, it's tough to find the positives, or tough to kind of find the highlights, something to end on a bright note, but I found something. And so I at least want to end us on a high note. AJ Terrell's been named the Falcons club winner for the 2025 Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year award that the team announced today. Of course, that's one of the most prestigious honors in all of the league because it's about community service. And it's really cool because AJ Terrell, of course, a native of Atlanta, being able to give back to his very community, playing for his hometown team. I just think that's such a good look in what he's been able to do. Obviously, he has the AJ Terrell Jr. Academy. That's a school-based leadership and academic coaching program that serves high school student athletes in under-resourced communities, trains athletic coaches who are placed directly into schools to work one-on-one with students on academic progress, time management, college planning, and life skills. So congratulations to AJ Terrell. I think that's so excellent because he and his brother, for that matter, and his entire family, they really do take the ideal and the concept of student athlete very seriously. So congratulations to him. And who knows, maybe that'll be another way for the Falcons to end on a positive note this season, should AJ Terrell win the NFL Walter Payton Man of the Year award. But again, congratulations for being the nominee for the Falcons. And thanks to our everydayers for making the Falcon Squad show your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by Locked on Falcons with your host, Aaron Freeman, as your second listen. And the Falcon Squad show and Locked on Falcons are part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. We will see you next time.